Hey guys, I'm Rebecca. I'm my Voice Our Story contributor here at Blend. Today I'm going to be talking about racism in the Asian American community. So if you've seen my live sessions before, you know that I usually talk about racial issues or Asian American issues, and I was actually planning on talking about something totally different this time. But something really important happened, and I thought that it would be wrong of me not to talk about this. So that's why I'm doing this topic today instead. So what could be so important that I felt like I needed to talk about it on a live session? Well, about a little over a week ago, 3 black women here in New York City, in Brooklyn, went to get their nails done at an Asian-owned nail salon. They got a mani-pedi and they got their eyebrows done. The mani-pedi went fine, and then they felt that their eyebrow job was not done well. They thought that their eyebrows were overplucked. They thought that they did a really, really bad job. They were upset with how their eyebrows were done. And so they paid for the mani-pedi, but they refused to pay for the eyebrows. And the Asian owner and Asian employees at this salon threatened to call the police on them and then proceeded to beat them up and physically attack them. It was a grandmother and her 2 granddaughters, and they were attacked by these women in the salon, beaten up, and had acetone, which is nail polish remover, thrown in their faces. And no matter what you might think of, refusing to pay for a service that you're not happy with, that never justifies this kind of violence. And it's really a big issue in the Asian American community. There's a lot of racism and specifically anti-blackness in our community. And it's a really big issue. And a few days after this happened, there was a protest outside of the salon to support the victims. And I've seen videos from the protest in which large majority of the people there were black. There were almost no Asian Americans, maybe 1 or 2 at the entire protest. And that's a real problem. There has been a history of tensions between Asian Americans and Black Americans in this country, and a lot of it is orchestrated by the United States, and a lot of it is in their favor. Things like the mono-minority myth back in the 70s and 80s were created to, pit these 2 groups against each other and kind of elevate Asian Americans to a higher status than Black Americans. We are a minority group and we are oppressed, but we still have a relative amount of privilege over other groups, and we have to really show up for each other. A lot of Asian Americans talk about solidarity and, showing up for other people of color, but when it comes down to it, we don't do it. I mean, clearly, looking at the protests that happened and the people that were there were clearly no or very few Asian Americans that actually showed up in solidarity with these victims. And that's a problem, especially when the violence and the racism is coming from our own community. And it's so common in the Asian American community to have these, anti-Black views. Speaking from my own experience, when my Indian grandmother found out that my mom was going to be marrying someone who wasn't Indian, she was happy that at least it wasn't a Black person, and attitudes like that are very common in the Asian American community. And it's not okay, and things like this need to be addressed. And this event that happened, this situation that happened, got very little coverage. Even here in New York City, where it happened, I didn't really see any coverage of it in mainstream media. Even in Asian American publications, I didn't see any coverage of it. The only way that I knew that this happened was because of the kinds of people that I associate with and the kinds of circles that I kind of run in, and that's how I knew that this happened. But if I had just been like your average person, I wouldn't have known. Even an Asian American, I wouldn't have known. And it's really a problem in our community. These struggles between these 2 groups have gone back really far, and they're still prevalent to this day, and those kinds of things can be really hard to break. But as a new generation, we should know that things like that are not okay, and that, we need to do better, and we need to show up, especially when our community is the one that's hurting other people. We need to show up to say that that's not okay. And I just think that we need to do a lot better as a community, as Asian Americans, and just as, as Americans, we should be supporting each other more. And I think that's it. That's all I really have to say about this. If, I guess I would love to know what you guys think about this, about these kinds of situations and tensions. Let me know, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.